Season 4 of Cobra Kai came out Friday, and I watched all of it. Let's review it. All right, season 4 of Cobra Kai. Some of you guys have probably watched it already. Some of you may have not, but just to let you know, this is going to be a full spoiler review. I'm not going to be doing 2 different videos. So if you don't want to know what happens on the show, then come back later after you watch it. And I recommend watching. This is a very, very good season. Yes, so season 4 of Cobra Kai. Look, I've been into this show since day one. I went as far as to get YouTube premium. I got like what was it, like a 7-day free trial a couple of years ago when this first came out, and then of course they sold it over to Netflix, probably their biggest mistake, and YouTube, that is. And this has been just a fun show, a very, very solid acting, good entertainment, plot twist and all that stuff. Just fun viewing. And this season was very, very good. More predictable than the prior seasons. I will say that this season is more predictable than, with the exception of what happens at the end, which we'll get to. Probably the biggest takeaway from this season was that Tori and Eli, or Hawk, probably had the 2 biggest storylines this season, in my opinion. Tori more than Eli, though. Eli's story kind of started breaking out more towards like the middle to the end of the season, where Tori, you could kind of see them building things up because of some of the crazy things she's done. She has issues, and those are the 2 standouts. And also the fact that the one thing about the show is there's a constant rotation and shifting of these kids and how they view their respective dojos versus the other dojo. That happens again in this season. And, you know, this is not a criticism, though it is a concern, because it's like in season 1, you had Robbie was part of Myagi Do. Obviously Miguel was part of Cobra Kai. And then, you know, one's dating this girl, one's dating that. And you know what I mean when I say the constant shift, you know, where now we got Robbie and Cobra Kai. You got Miguel with the Eagle Fang, and then you have obviously Samantha with obviously Myagi Do. Well, this season, what makes it very interesting is that Myagi Do and Eagle Fang have to work together in order to take down Cobra Kai, and you know right away this is going to cause issues. Daniel has a very distinct style of training his students, which is very much in the way of the training that he received from Mr. Myagi. And of course, Johnny has a more aggressive approach. And while it's not Cobra Kai, and while that's not what he wants to teach his kids, he still wants to teach his kids to be more aggressive, to, you know, if someone's threatening you, don't wait to take the punch, throw the first punch. Where Daniel's like, be on the defensive first. You know, and this season is basically about which way is the right way between these 2 teachers. And what you learn as the season progresses is that neither one is right or wrong. It really depends on the situation. And by the time these 2 can figure that out, by the time these 2 can come together to realize that there's a time and a place for Myagi Do karate, and there's a time and a place for Eagle Fang karate, it's kind of too late. And this is what I mean when I say that this season is a little bit predictable. You kind of know early on that Cobra Kai is going to just win. And essentially that's what happens. They just win. And but that's not to say that Cobra Kai doesn't have their own issues. One of the stories I love this season was a story with Robbie trying to train a young boy to fend off his own bullies. And what's ironic here is that the bullies he's dealing with is led by Daniel's son, Anthony LaRusso. And this is in like kind of late middle school. They're about to enter high school the next season. And, you know, Anthony LaRusso has been a character up to this point that really hasn't gotten a lot of burn. And this season he does. And it's interesting. It's interesting. You know, these kids on this show are, you know, I know there's some people who don't like Samantha LaRusso, Sam LaRusso. I've never had a problem with her, honestly, as a character. I mean, she is a teenager. What do you expect, right? And I know there's a lot of people who like Tori, and that's understandable. Tori has more of the struggle. They really emphasize that this year with Tori's struggles versus how Sam is, let's just face it, she's a teenager driving a Mercedes. All right, come on. Or was it a BMW? I think it was a Mercedes. So obviously Sam is well off. And what I liked about this season is that Sam's mother learns that Tori has struggles. If you remember, Sam's mom she did not want Tori anywhere near. Was going to go to the police, did not. Well, this season she learns that Tori is basically, she's taking care of her mom who's ill, and she's got nobody. The one person she does have is her aunt, waiting for her sister to die so she can get the money. It's a mess. It's a mess. So while there's no excuse for Tori's actions and the things she did in the prior season, at the same time, this is a troubled child who really doesn't have anyone to turn to. And this season, Mrs. LaRusso kind of starts to be that person that kind of goes out there for her, to the point that, Amanda actually goes and signs a form that allows Tori to return to high school. And what's interesting is that this whole element kind of flips things in the sense that makes Samantha come off as the villain here. And this is what makes the show so good, is that everything is a gray area. There's certain elements of the story that make some of the people from Cobra Kai not necessarily the bad guys. Like, you don't watch this show this season and think Robbie is a bad guy. He does bad things. In fact, if I think about it, he really does one particular bad thing. But otherwise, you also see him training this other young man that's new to Cobra Kai and trying to teach him actually better things. Now, in terms of this rivalry between Cobra Kai, Eagle Fang, and Miss Myagi-Do, the interesting twist here is that since Robbie's with Cobra Kai, he actually starts teaching Cobra Kai students Miyagi-Do karate. So they start to know what the other school's moves are. And this was obviously a huge advantage. Where over in Eagle Fang and Miyagi-Do, there's conflict, Now, there is a very, very good area of the show where Johnny starts to learn Miyagi-Do and vice versa. Daniel starts to learn Eagle Fang. And while they're both very critical of their styles, both at the end of this training really do take something from that training and learn. The problem is that this rivalry between Johnny and Danny, they just can't get over themselves, and they almost get in each other's way. And it makes not only for something funny, but it also makes you realize just how much their lives were affected and changed that day in the tournament. Johnny, where he went going forward versus Daniel. And, and they also use some footage from the Karate Kid that I don't think we ever saw in the movie, which is, it's not much, but they show you this cut footage from the perspective of each one. So in other words, Johnny has a flashback of Daniel taking like a blueberry pie and smashing it in Johnny's chest, and then them getting into like a little scrapple. This is what I think probably a cut scene from when Daniel and Cobra Kai, like Cobra Kai was not allowed to touch Daniel before the tournament because they were kind of wearing the same clothes in this scene, and Daniel had like a black eye and all that. But when you look at Daniel's memory or his flashback of the same incident, you see that Johnny takes that very same blueberry, I'm thinking it's a blueberry pie, and puts it on Daniel's seat right before he sits down. So you see, it's different perspective, right? I mean, you see where Johnny's coming from, but you also see where Danny's coming from. And that's this conflict that they just can't get over. And because they can't get over it, these guys can't work together, and they're kind of doomed to fail. Now, you meet a lot of new characters, and not a lot of new characters this season. You meet a couple of them. Once again, I mentioned a little boy. So the little boy is a little black boy. I think, can't remember his name in the outset, but he is the brother of the inmate that Robbie made friends with in the prior season, the one he kept getting into a fight with. Turns out that's his little brother. So that's why Robbie starts to look out for him. Then there's some two lesser characters that join Cobra Kai and Eagle Claw. So what happens is the big turn in this, the big turnabout in this season is that the tournament is now broken down into different like sections. For example, there's now a girls' final tournament and a boys' final tournament bracket. There's also a skills competition where each competitor can go out there with like a weapon or a bow staff or whatever the case may be, and they put on a display, they put on a show for points. So this gives a different perspective because now, you know, Miyagi-Do has Sam to represent them, and Cobra Kai has Tori, and then they recruit this. They actually get a girl that was recruited by Johnny from school. If you guys remember the girl Moon used to date Hawk, aka Eli. Well, the girl that she dated after her and Hawk broke up was approached by Johnny about joining Eagle Fang, and she turns around and flips on him and joins Cobra Kai. She's very athletic, very strong, very confident. And it's funny because in the scene where Johnny's trying to recruit her, he's talking all these woke mannerisms. And it's funny because he goes up to the girl, and right before he says anything, Miguel's like, Sensei, remember, you have to be, and he's like, I know, awake, I'm awake. And in other words, he meant woke. It was kind of funny, tongue in cheek right there. It was really, really good. This is such a good season, but the biggest takeaway was in the end. So Terry Silver, I know I haven't mentioned him yet. Terry Silver does return this season. It was a little bit different than what I expected. He wasn't the maniacal, crazy guy that you remember in Karate Kid 3. Turns out the reason he was like that is because he was a druggie. He was always on cocaine. These are things you learn about him this season. He doesn't play as big a role as you might think. But you see that there is a bit of a conflict there between him and John Kreese, because John Kreese keeps throwing the fact that he saved him in Nam, and Terry, you kind of realize is kind of John's lackey until he's not, until he's not. And if you guys remember, there's a character named Sling, I think, oh my God, Stingray, I think it was his name. This was the fat guy from season 1 that was security in the school. He was like an adult hanging out with teenagers. You guys know what I'm talking about. And he goes to return to Cobra Kai and basically gets his ass beat. First he gets bullied by John Kreese, and John Kreese throws him out of the dojo. He returns a day or two later, and he wants to come back. He runs into Terry. Terry's drunk because he's basically upset that John Kreese is kind of throwing mixed messages. On one hand, he wants no mercy. On the other hand, he doesn't want to do things Terry's way. And Terry was very, very like honest with him. He said, look, if we're going to win this, we cannot do it your way. We cannot do a strike first. We can't do no mercy. That didn't work. We failed at that. And Terry kind of took a roundabout way of proving that to John. And the kids kind of end up doing it Terry's way anyway, because the big thing is that Terry's a manipulator. He knows how to play parts. He's very adept politically and things of that nature than John Kreese is. At the end of it all, what turns out to happen is that he frames John Kreese for beating up that guy. And he tells the guy, because the guy wants to be in Cobra Kai so badly, he tells him, if you want to be in Cobra Kai, you tell them John Kreese did this to you. And the guy in the hospital reluctantly tells the investigator, and at the end of the show, the end of the season, last episode, the very last scene, the cops come to Terry's house and take him in, and Terry just flipped it on John. So now John Kreese is going to jail. There can be no more Miyagi-Do. There can be no more, you know what I mean, Eagle Fang, because they lost the tournament. The cool thing about the tournament is there was a good redemption arc for Hawk. And at the end of it all, Hawk beats Robbie in the tournament. He does. He beats Robbie because he takes what he learned from Myagi, and he also combined it with what he learned from Cobra Kai and Eagle Fang, where Robbie didn't learn as much Cobra Kai as Hawk did at the time. Anyway, at the end of the day, Hawk beats Robbie. I was very excited for that. I like Hawk, or Eli rather. He's one of my favorite characters. And the big thing there is that earlier in the season, Hawk got his mohawk shaved off by Cobra Kai. Cobra Kai came in. He was getting a new tattoo. Cobra Kai came in. We're holding him down. And then Robbie's the one that took the blade and cut Hawk's mohawk. And that's probably the worst thing Robbie did this season. Yeah, it was really really good season. But the way that they end up losing is that Tori beats Sam, and that I saw that coming. I mean, this is an ending you saw coming. You knew that Daniel and Johnny were going to lose because they actually never ended up working together. That's the thing about the season. Midway through the season, they gave up. They took their own students back, but there was a conflict there as well because Miguel actually started learning and liking and hanging out a lot with Daniel LaRusso and learning, Miyagi-Do. And at the same time, Johnny was getting jealous because, that's his number one student. But Johnny was also dating Miguel's mother, who they finally told him. And then Johnny started kind of acting like he didn't know how to be around Miguel. So he started doing things opposite to what like Miguel, like, I don't want to say like he was acting like his dad. He wasn't, but he kind of was. Like he didn't know what to do because, Johnny was basically stuck between a rock and a hard place with the mother wanting him to back her up. And at the same time, him not wanting to come off like, oh, you should be home when your mother tells you. And because Johnny's all about, oh yeah, get your babes. And he's always been like that with Miguel. So that was just a big mess. And combine that with the fact that, in the tournament, Miguel hurt himself again. Luckily, story-wise, it wasn't anything serious. He went to do a spinning kick that he learned in Eagle Fang that Johnny taught him. And during the spinning kick, you could hear a crunch. But it sounded a lot worse than it was. It turns out he was just hurt. And it's funny because he's in the back room. He has 30 minutes to come back to the mat. And I'm thinking, uh-oh, this is what's going to happen. Johnny's gonna be in there, and Daniel's going to come in and and make him heal. That's going to piss Johnny off. But no, that's one thing I was wrong about. That didn't happen. Basically, Miguel was like, yeah, I feel okay. And Johnny's like, okay, I need you to be out there, blah, blah, blah. And Miguel was like, you don't want me to fight for me. You want me to fight for you. Like, Johnny wanted to win. The reason Johnny wanted to win wasn't the right reason. And Miguel kind of knew that. And the countdown went to 0. He never came to the mat. And that's when Johnny realized he fucked up. And then that's why, because Eli and Johnny and Miguel were the ones fighting each other. So Eli advanced to the final round because Miguel decided to just not come back to the mat. So that's how Eli got to the finals, and that's how he ended up beating Robbie. And then Tori and Sam had and these were great fight scenes, by the way. This wasn't like this, couple of minutes. Like, these fights were long. There were a lot of moves. There were a lot of counters. And the only thing is that Tori was asked by Sam's mother, I'm not trying to convince you not to fight. All I want you to do is fight by the rules. And she does. And she does. And she wins. She legitimately beats Sam until you realize that she doesn't. Because what happens is Sam is outside celebrating with Cobra Kai holding her trophy. I mean, excuse me, not Sam. Tori is outside with Cobra Kai celebrating, holding the trophy. She walks back in to, I believe, get something she forgot. And turns out that Terry Silver paid off the ref. And the way that plays out on the match is there's a part where Sam gets a score on Tori that would have later given Sam the victory, only the ref called her out of bounds, even though Sam landed the hit and scored the point that on her before she was out of it. Like, basically, Sam scored the hit, scored the point, and then the hit, the results of the hit is what put Tori out of bounds. She was not actually out of bounds before the hit. And that's essentially what gave her the victory. And yeah, Terry Silver, man, he's grimy dude. So that's like all the core elements, the core parts of what happened this season. I know this was a long review. There was a lot to talk about because I'm basically talking about 10 episodes here, and I'm kind of giving you guys we're talking about the meat and potatoes of everything that happened. By the time Johnny and Daniel find out that they were wrong, Johnny wrong for basically wanting to win for the wrong reasons, versus Daniel wrong for not allowing his students to learn Eagle Fang. By the time he embraces the idea of Myagi Fang, because he does say that to Johnny at the end, not the end of the show, like the end of, like during the match, like one of the last episodes, because finally they realized they need to work together, but it was too late. It was too late. By the time Johnny and Ralph, and I keep about to call him Ralph Macchio, by the time Johnny and Danny finally come together to combine their styles, it's too late. is this too late? And you see that Sam, it was, again, very different perspectives here, because one thing I want to mention before I end this review is that while Miguel was kind of gravitating towards Myagi, though, Sam was gravitating towards Eagle Fang. And that's also what caused the conflict between Johnny and Daniel, because Daniel obviously does not want Sam to learn that, and Johnny wants his student back. It's this crazy shit. But I think the biggest arcs to this season were Eli and also Tori, and they were both very, very, obviously Eli is like a good redemption arc. So the idea that he won the boys tournament was great, and I actually like the fact that he beat Robbie, because Robbie's kind of a dick, you know what I mean? Like, he's kind of a dick, and I'm actually happy that Tori won, and even though Tori she's done some really bad things, she doesn't have things going for her like Sam does. And at the same time, that doesn't mean I don't like Sam. Sam has very good reason to be upset and angry with Tori. This is why I'm saying this was what makes the show good. It's very gray. You kind of root for both sides sometimes. And that's what makes the show very, very fun. And at the end of the day, these are all kids, and they're looking up to people like Daniel and Johnny, and even John Kreese and Terry Silver. And they're all doing things in ways that are not always in the best interests of the kids. And at the same time, they're learning as well. Remember, Daniel's just starting to teach now. Johnny's a new teacher, and Terry and John Kreese are old school, and they don't teach very good things. So last thing that I want to mention that happens on the show, another big reveal, is that at the end, you see Daniel praying to Myagi, his tombstone. He's on his knees. He's like, but he's also talking to somebody else off screen. And then at the end, he says, I have to stop Cobra Kai. Will you help me? And it pans back and you see Shozan. Shozan's there, and Shozan's going to be there next season helping Daniel stop Cobra Kai. It's going to be interesting, man. Oh, good shit. It was good shit. So if you guys haven't seen it, what are you doing here? I just spoiled the shit out of this show. But it was a great season. I had a lot of fun. It was predictable. I knew Cobra Kai was going to win. That's kind of obvious, not even halfway through the season. And once Eli beat Robbie, I knew for a fact that Sam was going to lose. So just great stuff. Great stuff overall. It was still a very fun season. A lot of shit went down. Lots of surprises, and more surprises to come. Anyway, guys, I know it was a long video, but remember, I'm reviewing a whole 10 episodes here. So let me know in the comment section, what did you think about the season of Cobra Kai? I thought it was, I still think it was a great season. I just think out of all the seasons, this one was probably the most predictable, but I think they knew that, and it was kind of hard to navigate around that. You could tell that Cobra Kai was going to come out on top. Even though Terry and John had their issues, that they kind of got by them much easier and a lot better than Johnny Lawrence and Daniel LaRusso did. But one of the reasons why is because Terry Silver had a long game plan that nobody saw coming. That was probably the biggest surprise of the season, because you remember these guys being buddy, and Terry just turned on his boy, and now he's going to be running Cobra Kai all over the valley. Oh man, it's going to be crazy. Anyway, that's it for this video. I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys say in the comments. And I'll see you guys next time. Take it easy.